Welcome to another Forex Fantasies video. This one's going to focus on choosing a broker. There are a lot of myths out there about brokers, and it's not even so much myths as it is misconceptions. The problem with being a new trader and looking for a broker is invariably what you'll do is you'll stumble upon review sites. And there's basically two different types of review sites. There are the ones that will say our experts have gone through the various brokerage firms, and we have found, we've searched the globe for Forex brokers, and we found a handful that we found to be very trustworthy, wonderful brokerage firms, blah, blah, blah. And they'll tell you how great these places are, and they're all rated like 5 stars or something. And then the idea is you click on them, you join that broker, and the person who reviewed them gets the commission on each trade. They get a rebate. It's called an introducing broker agreement, and it's completely it's complete bullshit because it's basically they are scamming you in the sense that they're telling you they're reviewing the broker. And I can tell you from personal experience as being a consultant to a lot of different websites, more often than not, the people who are recommending these brokers have never traded Forex a day in their life. They just see it as a money-making operation to get you trading. So that's a problem. So anytime you look at a site that says it reviews Forex brokerage houses and almost everything's rated really high, that's your first clue. The other type is the forum. And the forums are probably worse in the sense that then you've got a bunch of random people's opinions. And what you'll find is it's impossible to find a broker in a forum that has more than, say, 20 reviews that doesn't have at least one claiming to be that they were ripped off by that broker. A lot of this comes down to either sour grapes because a person blew their account up and they want to take it out on somebody, or that they just simply don't understand the mechanics of the market. For example, one that you'll hear quite a bit is that, broker X widened my spread to this ridiculous 41 pip, spread or whatever, and it hit my stop loss. Well, that can happen for various reasons. If you don't understand the mechanics of the market, then you don't understand that literally can happen for several reasons. A lot of times you'll find out if you really pin them down and you talk to them, it was during an economic announcement. So if your position's so highly levered that 40 pips is going to make or break your account, then maybe the real issue isn't the fact that non-farm payrolls came along and the pips widened, the spread widened to 40 pips at one point. Depending on the pair, that might be easily reached, and some it would never see that. But, a lot of times you'll find out that they're like, in pounds Swiss or something, which a lot of brokers charge like 8 pips for the spread anyways. But you find out that they are complaining about the spreads being widened, and they don't understand that the liquidity in the market dries up at that point. Or another one of my favorites is that the spreads widen over the weekend. Like you'll hear that a lot about in Oanda, people bitching about Oanda spreads over the weekend. But there's nobody in the market in the weekend. If there's nobody there to sell you the euro at 1.4187, then it'll look for 1.4188 and keep rising until it finds somebody willing to sell you. If there's nobody in the market, they're not going to be at the normal price that you would see, perhaps like a 2-pip spread or something. But a lot of traders don't know this. They go in the boards flaming, and for the new trader, they don't understand that, the problem is with the trader. Now, having said that, there are some pretty crappy brokers out there. Do not get me wrong. But I just wanted you to be aware of the fact that there's a reason for the confusion. On one side, there's people trying to make money. On the other side, there's people trying to get revenge. And in those, I should also say, in those forums, sometimes there's people from a particular brokerage firm going in and flaming another one that they see as their closest rival. So the forums can be helpful, but you need to understand what you're looking at. And unfortunately, until you have a good grasp of the mechanics of the market, you're probably not going to. And as a Side effect of that, you just don't really know what you're looking for, and it'll just end up confusing you more. Trust me, I've been there, I know. And even once you get a little bit of experience, it can be somewhat confusing. So having said all of that, let's look at exactly how you do want to look at a broker and consider using a broker. If this is your first broker, there are some, and even if it's not your first broker, but there are some basic guidelines you might want to follow. Number one, find out where they're regulated. The one place that you see almost everybody regulated that's kind of shady is Cyprus. Everybody loves CySEC, which is the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission, I believe. It's CYSEC. So it's like the SEC in the United States with CY in front of it for Cyprus. So the reason for that is pretty much anybody with a pulse and the ability to fill out a form and to send a check can be regulated in Cyprus. It's one of the easiest places. So the first thing I do when I'm looking at a broker and I see that they're regulated in Cyprus, gone. Don't want to talk to them. It's okay to be regulated in Cyprus if you're also regulated in several other countries. I guess I should say that. But in general, if your biggest claim to reliability is the fact that you're regulated in an EU country, and that EU country is Cyprus and not a place like, I don't know, Germany, then that to me automatically sends up red flags. I understand it's easier to get regulated there, and no, not everybody regulated in Cyprus is a scammer, but you do see a lot of the really chintzy, shady-looking brokers being regulated in Cyprus. The other thing is if they are regulated in Cyprus and their office is in a place like Belize, and they happen to be a Russian firm, when you start spreading around the world like that, that to me tells me that you're kind of avoiding some things. So I would avoid that as well. If you're looking at the country that they're regulated in, why don't you look at a country that you know has a long history of strong business practices? Think of places like the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, Australia, Japan. These are all places where Canada, these are all places that I'm not concerned about somebody ripping me off. I realize it can happen anywhere, but let's be honest. You know, some of these countries have long-standing business laws and respect the rule of business as a whole. I mean, ask yourself this. Would you feel safer depositing money in an American bank or a bank in Papua New Guinea? But for some reason, Forex traders see things like bonuses and tight spreads, and they're willing to trade with that Forex broker in Papua New Guinea. They'll bypass FXCM, GFT, OANDA, Interbank FX, Interactive Brokers, all of these well-known and well-capitalized American firms, and go directly to Papua New Guinea because they think that the half a pip spread difference is going to make them rich somehow. So you have to use a little bit of common sense. If you narrow it down to that short list, like I said, United States, Australia, Canada, UK, Germany, other EU countries, Switzerland, Japan, I suppose there's French brokers that are great. I don't know of any because they tend to advertise to French-speaking individuals, but I'm just pointing out the biggest countries. If you look at those, you should have plenty of firms to look at. But another reason you want to look at those, beyond the fact that business tends to be done more often than not legally in these countries, is the fact that they're heavily regulated. If you want to do business with a broker that is regulated heavily, and I do mean heavily, the United States is the place to go. $20 million is what you have to have in capitalization to even think about being a Forex broker here. Before that, there was a point in time where there were actually Forex brokers that were capitalized with as little as like $50,000. You think about that, that sets up the potential for disaster. It only takes one or two big traders to just wipe the company out. So that gives the incentive to start slipping and cheating, basically. So because of that, they raised the capital limits up or capital requirements up, and it ruined a lot of brokers. A lot of them left the United States at that point and went back to Europe or wherever they came from. And that to me says a lot too. It says that they just aren't capitalized well enough. As a general rule, some of them don't want to be bothered either. There are some there are some exceptions to that rule. Like I know a lot of the Swiss brokers bailed mainly because there's the whole Swiss banking regulation thing and the whole tension with the United States too. That's kind of a different story. Dukas Copy is a Swiss broker that I like a lot, but I can't trade anymore being an American. And that has more to do with the U.S. and Switzerland and taxes and everything else, I think, than just the capitalization. Because certainly Dukas Copy is, it's a pass-through ECN. They don't have any interest in your trading. Whether you make it or break it. And in fact, they actually want you to win because, then you trade more. Same thing with Interactive Brokers in the United States, but Interactive Brokers is a brokerage firm on a lot of different levels. It's just not Forex, it's stocks, so it's a little bit different game with those types of players. But looking at those countries, there's going to be plenty of firms. And then added to that, you get the ability to go to a place like the NFA and check up on them, see how many actions, punitive actions have been taken against them. And you'll be surprised. You'll read all about these flamers on the internet about a place like GFT or whatever, and then you look into it, and there's very little action. Sometimes there's none on some of these brokers. I happened to look the other day at Oanda, and they had none, zero. When you think about the fact that they've been around for, I think they've been around since about 97 or so. Yeah, that's 13, 14 years in the Forex world with no punitive complaints. And that even goes back to the Wild West days when, some brokers really were ripping people off. So use a little common sense. Work with the developed countries. I'm sure there are plenty of hardworking people in Ghana who are trying to open up a Forex brokerage house. But the problem is you're trusting your money quite often with a company that's overseas. Even if it's only $1,500 and you're putting money in a Forex firm, on the other side of the world, they know you're not going to come over there to get it, so they have no reason to fear you. But they do have reason to fear the regulatory bodies that they deal with. So really, in a lot of ways, it comes down to the regulatory bodies. The FSA in the UK doesn't play around either. That's another example of a regulatory body that I think is highly respected around the world. And because of that, it's really the regulatory bodies that you're choosing. And the brokerage just comes secondary. A lot of times it's just a personal thing. Maybe you want to trade CAD yen and one firm has it and one firm doesn't. Maybe the spreads are a little better at a firm, than another one. But in general, they are starting to tighten up and become almost identical. So using that common sense, you should be able to find a broker that'll work for you. Thanks a lot.